Welcome to Keeping Current with Grubby and Minx, your only source of news. On today's episode, COVID cryptid revival and canine crypto self-reliance, the not-so-blessed rains of Africa, and James Bond pre-production blows undercover operation. Throughout the pandemic, scientists around the world have noted an increase in population of endangered species from all walks of life. Today we have Minx finally in studio to discuss a couple of species and a phenomenon we're seeing around the world. So, Minx, tell me.
Yeah, this is quite a fantastic discovery today in many places across the globe. It's not just in one localized area per se, but scientists have noticed that species such as the Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and the El Chupacabra and other endangered species that prior to COVID, we just, have dwindling reports of their numbers have come back in a boom, in a way to show that there is nature healing from this crisis.
Interesting. Are we seeing recovery from all cryptid species or select few? I'm particularly curious on the Mongolian deathworm.
We're seeing, overall at the moment, these scientists have kind of alluded to an overall increase of any cryptid you can think of. Now, of course, we are seeing, numbers increase for some of the more, the cryptid species that had a healthier start. So, your Bigfoots and your Loch Ness, who already had, even though they were endangered, they had a sizable population. So of course their growth back has been much more exponential.
I'm curious, have scientists been able to observe these creatures now in growing population? Bigfoot, for example, is so sparse in the wild, you might get a sighting of one here or there, but are we able to observe them as family units, or are they social? Are they groups? Do they have a hierarchy? Or
scientists, have shown like video or witness video accounts of a Bigfoot carrying its young across a river to either look for a habitat or return to a habitat. We've seen things. Scientists have shared data of local people in Scotland saying when and where they saw the Loch Ness Monster, whether it's one or multiple.
But not yet any full-fledged research projects.
Well, it is like research, right? These are scientists, yeah.
Okay, so there are teams coming out and observing.
Yes, and they're gathering that data of witness account.
Interesting. So we're seeing human impact. It's obviously impacting the cryptids around the world. As the economy revamps, what is going to happen with these species?
Well, I think it'll be a good opportunity for the tourism sector again. In the past, we've seen many towns just founded on the tourism of being able to have a chance to see these cryptids.
So we'll see a growth, but will we see a decline?
It's possible.
It's the pollution from air travel and car travel.
Yes.
The noise pollution, obviously scaring all these creatures away from the line of sight. So when they all they will go down.
They will go down from the tourism. Scientists have already kind of seen a similar trajectory for most cryptid species across time. As people are around less, there are more. And as people are around more, there are less. It's sort of a natural inverse
probably coupled too with trophy hunters as well.
Absolutely. The instant a species starts to rise, some predator will rise to use it, and unfortunately, with the human population, we'll see a lot of opportunities for trophy hunting and the like.
Well, I know here at Keeping Current, we like to be as objective as possible, but there's a theory on bringing up ocean fish levels by having like a 50-year period of no fishing just to allow the whole ocean to recover globally. It's a shame that we can't do that for our cryptids.
It is unfortunate, it seems to be the case that, nobody wants to go sightsee a fish or, sort of the boring animals of every day. There's something more exciting about the thrill of the search or the hunt of a cryptid that does unfortunately impact that species. Even, the more it starts to increase its populations, again, people come in droves and that population decreases again. It's sort of similar to, I can't remember the physics intellect who said that light observed changes, where unobserved it's a particle, I believe, and then observed it's a wave. Cryptids often seem to act the same way.
And along with cryptids, are we seeing the same population growth and reduction within mythical beasts? I'm talking nymphs, water monsters.
No, like nothing that is absolutely
griffins.
Fairy tale,
no,
fake.
those we're
No
not
griffins,
seeing. There's no evidence of those.
Yeah, no water creatures,
Krakens,
no unicorns, no krakens,
no centaurs,
no dragons. Centaurs, obviously centaurs.
Oh, so we are seeing a growth in the centaur population.
Yes, centaurs,
Interesting.
Centaurs have
centaur
always,
population
and will always be.
I've heard a little bit of this on Twitter. They're saying there's something between centaurs and PETA. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it seems to be sort of a potential controversial move by PETA to what appears to be an enslavement attempt on the centaur population, to use them as sort of this, bastardized between both man and animal soldier of some sort.
So it's kind of a weird conflict of identity of what's animal and what's human.
Yes.
Like, is human animal?
Yes, it kind of blurs those lines.
Is there solid evidence?
Oh, absolutely. Like, there's people...
There is solid evidence.
For the centaurs existing or for PETA using...
Moving on to
both.
PETA.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Like, those both are, I'd say, fairly truthful statements.
But it's still developing.
Yes, we still don't have all the information.
Well, interesting. It's a good segue into our next segment, PETA. PETA, the animal rights group, has recently decried the sapient use of Dogecoin. The group argues that the crypto should rightfully only be traded among those of the canine species. PETA has recently called Elon Musk's Dogecoin buying frenzy, quote, currency appropriation, unquote. In a rare buckling to external pressure, all major crypto wallets and exchanges have mandated Dogecoin to only be traded among those anonymous canine users. The shitcoin has grown 3,800% in value, and most activity appears to be from the suburbs of the United States, concentrated in inner-city Rio de Janeiro, and throughout Taliban-held Afghanistan. The Security Department of the United States has issued subpoenas to the creators of Dogecoin and, with the goal to freeze all trading, even among the canine users. Minx, this is unprecedented in the crypto world. First of all, we've never seen a coin segregated to a certain species. Well, what are the implications of that?
Well, I think we have, though, human beings and gold and silver and, currency. We've seen this happen before, that it was an inevitable progress in our cultural evolution as a society. Now, of course, it's controversial, but it seems to be, a point of potential at all points throughout history, Our ancestors used to have canines as their sort of right-hand men, and they would, trade with them. You go kill rabbit, I cook rabbit, you get a share of the rabbit. So this really isn't too out of the norm, I would argue.
Well, some would argue that the rabbit, any animal, could really eat, right? When you're separating currency by species, and then you're seeing, exchanges in Taliban-held Afghanistan, you start to wonder, is this segregation like just a way to keep species apart rather than coming together?
And that's a fair social question to ask. And I think with a lot of social issues in our culture, we'll see sort of a pushback period and then a resurgence of coming together. And who's to know, at some point, our canine best friends may reintroduce us into their version of the crypto economy.
Due to the anonymous nature of cryptocurrency, it's difficult to see the trends amongst those trading for anything other than crypto itself. But is there any speculation to where the money might be going among the canine users? I know I'm curious. My wife would probably be curious for our little puppy. What do they like to buy? Are they on Amazon Prime? Are they buying
I would say, there's sort of a few components to this. We're seeing, kind of the standard assumed purchases from that species, like dog treats and, a new bed to sleep in, a new water bowl. But we're seeing, a lot of transactions and sales in bit mining equipment as well. And actually, just 1 second here. Breaking news on this very story here. We're having word here that there's actually a lot of sales with this Dogecoin for illegal arms in it, and it appears as well that the United States government has made an official statement accusing the dog and canine and puppy communities of illegal trade of arms for terrorist use. This is quite a strange development in this story. Wow. I never really saw the potential. I never thought
Dogecoin and the puppy community would be funding terrorism.
I would have never assumed that man's best friend had potential for such
our greatest enemy, really.
Yeah, that's terrible. I'm going to be a little bit suspicious of my friend at home there that we got sleeping in his own bed. He always looks so...
War on terror, more like war on terriers.
That's true, yes, good pun. That's still an awful, awful story.
Many people are likely going to die.
A lot of death.
Well, that saddens my heart, and probably a lot of puppies put down after this.
Absolutely, we'll see.
Well, it's in the fight for freedom.
That's true. We've got to do what we need to ensure domestic security.
By killing our dogs. Yes. Well, thank you very much, Minx. On to our next story. The rains in Africa, particularly over the Sahara Desert, have caused a great deal of economic woes to those in the region. The mass rainfall in the Sahara have caused the flora to erupt, so the once famous sand dunes of the Sahara Desert are now replaced with rolling hills of Northern European-esque farmland. Poorly invested farmers who were once purchased the land and were to suffer the economic consequences are now rejoicing with what is now a quite lush and lucrative... The whole of the Saharan Desert is covered in plants and loamy soil now. But unfortunately, the nomadic tribes of the Saharan Desert, as well as Libyan sex slave traffickers, are upset that they no longer have such a large area to operate in without any other population. With me today is our keeping current meteorologist, Dick Blowhard. Dick, we don't see weather patterns like this in the Sahara Desert really ever.
Yeah,
normally it's a desert, correct?
Absolutely. This is quite a phenomenon in world news, and it's unprecedented.
And sorry to be all hot and bothered about this, but there's a lot of conflicting theories on why this is the case. Why exactly we're seeing these weather patterns, and why we're seeing such a drastic change in the largest desert on the planet. I was wondering if for me and our listeners, you could give me a breakdown of some of the theories on why we're seeing this to be the case.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. The science isn't completely sold on it just yet, but there's a reality to it. Our job as meteorologists is to predict the weather. Mm-hmm. And, we use scientific tools to achieve that means. Now, I myself, being a man of science, being a meteorologist, do not say this lightly, but we don't have a great idea yet on what caused this. It could be something like magic, like divine prophecy, we're still kind of on the fence right now as the story develops.
Well, let's go through each theory one by one. We'll go for why it's viable and why it's not viable. So theory 1, solar flare causes magnetic upset within the Earth atmosphere. Why does that theory work and why does it not work?
Like there's conversations around the magnetic North Pole of the Earth shifting. And what we could have seen happen from a scientific perspective is that, we were hit by a solar flare of some sort that drastically changed the magnetic North Pole of our Earth to a new point, which then changed the climate in a specific way that the only change we could physically see was the Sahara becoming this lush farmland. Because as of now, we've seen no other changes across the globe.
And is that why this theory is not a viable theory as well? Is that we're not seeing any other change?
Yes. The reason the science is sort of at a standstill right now is that, if that were the case, if that were the true sort of scientific reality to this, we'd see widespread change. Climates across the globe would have changed as rapidly as we've seen in the Sahara. Which leads to, the theories of magic being maybe possibly the answer here. And maybe, that Libyan sex traffickers happen to, inspire an escaped victim to become a witch of some sort, to cast a curse upon that land. And that's why, divine prophecy crosses over, because many...
Is that specifically the second theory, that this is witches?
Oh, I would say that's definitely a theory that I've heard spoken amongst other meteorologists.
Why is that a likely scenario?
It explains sort of the abrupt nature of it, the localized nature of it. This seems like a targeted act of manipulation.
Of the region, okay.
Yes.
And so why is witchcraft not a viable theory then?
It's witchcraft.
Okay, theory 3 then is preacher Nathan Crowley of Scotland claiming to be the new arm of God himself, taking a more monotheistic approach than witches. Why is this a viable theory? Why is Nathan Crowley?
If we accept at this moment this strange occurrence to be proof of divine, prophecy or intervention, then we can assume that, all stories in religious text are also true, and we've seen similar events throughout, religious history, such as God flooding the earth.
A reversal of the Noah story.
Absolutely,
interesting.
Right?
So why is Nathan Crowley's the theory of Nathan Crowley not a viable one?
Again, so far at least, science has been pretty accurate. This is the one sort
Just
of mark.
Not the one time that science
this is the
not
one
accurate.
time where we're having a time trying to explain.
We
this.
don't trust Messiah-like figures.
Well, that's up to the viewers to decide.
At least, but in our meteorology department, what do we think of messiahs?
That's up for debate, I would say, because right now, meteorology has struggled to answer this question. So at this point, being, men of science and women of science, we have to kind of, come together as a meteorology community and ask, we didn't see this coming.
Right.
Maybe our tools for predicting the weather are wrong. Maybe we should take, biblical text seriously. If someone commits adultery, that inherently proves that there'll be a swarm of locusts or raining blood and frogs. That could be the new meteorology. We could
be a possibility. Yeah.
Absolutely. We could see that change in media.
Interesting. Well, while I'm excited for the end of desertification in the Sahara Desert, which was a massive fear among the northern African countries, I am glad to see this land now being repurposed in a useful way. My heart does go out to the cultural nomadic tribes of the Sahara Desert, as well as the Libyan sex slave traffickers.
Yes, definitely have them in our prayers today.
All right. Dick Blowhard, thank you very much for coming on and letting me hit you with the hard questions here.
Absolutely, anytime.
And finally, we're getting reports from Budapest in Hungary that a pre-production team doing location scouting for the next James Bond installment has mistakenly blown an undercover operation in the metro of Budapest. This operation that was blown actually led to the deaths of 15 individuals, 6 of which were agents from various countries ranging from the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, Russia, and China, as well as the remaining innocent bystanders that were gunned down. About 40 were injured in total, and like I said, the 15 dead. We have Minx on the scene in Budapest. Minx, hopefully, can you hear me over the sirens and the cries of wailing anguish?
Yes, you're coming through clear here. It is quite a tragic scene today. Just a fluke, a 1 in a million circumstance. The absolute pinnacle of wrong place, wrong time here in Budapest today. Eyewitness account says that they saw the agents of the filming industry who were here scouting locations, taking pictures of various locations, various buildings, so on and so forth. And what one witness claims, who is actually there and has survived with minor injuries, what they claim to have happened was one of the spies said, like, "What are you doing? You're going to blow our operation here. We're right in the middle of it." And that alerted, the other spies of these other enemy countries to realize that was their mark. And it caused a massive gunfire as, the other allied spies to these nations were then exposing themselves in public again to, aid their allies. And it just erupted into this massive event in downtown here in Budapest where, like you said, there was a tragic amount of casualties and wounded citizens just due to a fluke misunderstanding.
Oh, that's very interesting. Now, it is to my understanding that, we have the agents that are deceased now, but there's at least 10 more that are speculated to have fled the scene. Now, are we clear about what exactly this undercover operation was, what was going on in Budapest, and why were we seeing agents from the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, China, and Russia all in that one spot?
It's sort of confidential at the moment still. We're not hearing a ton, of course, as you alluded to. There's, marks and spies on both sides that haven't been uncovered yet. So this operation still may be progressing, but that begs the question of with filming around the corner for this new Bond movie, could they accidentally have some candid photography mixed in, where maybe even as they're filming, that's interpreted by these spy agencies. It seems to be a gross oversight by both or all countries involved here, where they didn't have the intel or the training to realize that these were just standard Hollywood types coming to scout locations,
just taking photographs. Have Warner Brothers made any statements regarding this incident, and is the next installment of the James Bond franchise with the replacement James Bond still TBA? Is that going to be affected?
It still seems like Warner Brothers is going ahead full steam on this. They're kind of taking it as an opportunity in disguise, to sort of promote their film as being, sort of an example of authentic, spy cinema. And, whether or not we look at that as a good or bad moral decision, it seems to be profitable. Anticipation for this movie is at an all-time high.
All right, and coming from this event, we're seeing in the Twitter sphere another growing speculation on who is going to replace Daniel Craig as James Bond. Is there any news there on the floor in Budapest?
We've heard, we've surveyed different people who were involved in the shooting.
Victims and bystanders and witnesses.
And witnesses, fans of the franchise, they could be both. And, they said, some of the classic choices, such as actors like Michael Cera and Jonah Hill, sort of the really classic assumed choices for
the Hungarians. The Hungarians have an eclectic taste on James Bond.
Oh, absolutely! Quite a unique perspective.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much, Minx. Hopefully, we can get some more information. And it seems that there are some travel advisories that many Western countries are giving out to avoid Budapest for the time being. It appears that covert operations are still undergoing. I just got a note on my desk that there was another shooting on the other side of town. Perhaps maybe next week you can fill us in on that if anything comes of it. But
yes, we're jumping in the van right now to head over that way to check that out, and we'll have an update for the studio as soon as we can.
All right, thank you very much. To our listeners, thank you for listening to our show. Have a lovely night, and remember, keeping current is the only source of news.
But
no, just start on but.
Just start on but.
I should be able to edit it and just go but.
Okay.
We're seeing